What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's up? What's up? What's cracking? Hold on. What's good? Shalom. I know y'all see the title. We back at it, right? Getting back into this series of the Maccabean Hasmonean dynasty, right? What we call Black History BC, right? Breaking it down, getting back into the history, right? Title: Black History BC, the Backstabbers, right? A Maccabean tale. So yeah, we're gonna get right into it though, right? Of course, before we start, giving all praises to the Most High, and we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly know as Jesus Christ, right? So we're gonna get right into it though. We're gonna jump right to First Maccabees chapter 5, right? First Maccabees chapter 5. So we're gonna get a little, see what's going on throughout the province of Jerusalem and stuff like that. So yeah, let's start with 5. So it says, and now when the nations round about heard that the altar was built and the sanctuary renewed as before, it displeased them very much. So so this is after they, rebuilt up the temple, established the holiday, right? So the other surrounding nations, of course, they was, upset, because we trying to gain back our sovereignty, right? And it says, wherefore they thought to destroy the generation of Jacob that was among them, and thereupon they began to slay and destroy the people. So then, they made war with the people, right? Because it was, hating on us, right? Hating that we got our temple back up, right? Because they, you got to understand when, the other nations, feed off of, our, destruction, when we're, in a low state. And seeing that we're, being prosperous again, they ain't like all that, right? Then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabatim, because they besieged Israel, and he gave them a great overthrow, and battered their courage, and took their spoils. Right? So now this is important, right? So now our brother Judas is fighting against the Greeks, right? And we know who the Greeks are, right? So, and this is for those people that be always talking about, well, how you know that that white people is Esau? How you know that they Esau? We know the history of the Maccabees. We know who they was going to war with. And then it just said, then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabatim, because they besieged Israel. So these Greeks that were fighting, they are the children of Esau, right? Although they call themselves different names and stuff now, the history of that between the Greeks and the Romans and all that stuff. And then as their empire got toppled, and then, Civil War and all that stuff, then they broke up into what they call Germanic tribes and stuff. Then they became France and England and, and so forth, right? So, but it all had a starting point. And And then also too, understanding who Esau is in the Bible, everything, the history of him, and according to God, and that, understanding that fact is a clear reason why they would take this book out, because the Bible says that Esau is the one that God promised to destroy off the face of the earth, right? The Bible calls them the wicked, calls them the devil, and they can't push this religion thing that they got going on now if you have a book here that identifies them as emphatically against the children of God, right? And called the children of Esau, right? And so, of course they took this book out. Because that's, this is a lot of history in it. So yeah, it says he was fighting against the children of Esau. And we know that these are the Greeks. And anyway. Then also he remembered the injured of the children of being who had been a snare and an offense unto the people, and that they laid wait for them in the ways. He shut them up therefore in the towers, and encamped against them, and destroyed them utterly, and burnt the towers of the place with fire. And all that were therein. Afterwards he passed over the children of Ammon, where he found a mighty power and much people, and Timotheus their captain. So he fought many battles with them till the length they were discomfort before him, and he smote them. And when he had taken Jazer with the towns belonging thereto, he returned into Judea. When the heathen that were at Gilead assembled themselves together against the Israelites that were in the quarters to destroy them, but they fled to the fortress of Adatamah, and sent letters unto Judas and his brethren, and the brethren that were round about us are assembled together against us to destroy us. So Judas over there kicking everybody butt, right? And it says, and they prepared to come and take the fortress whereunto, and we fled. Timotheus being captain of their host, come now thereof, and deliver us from their hands, for many of us are slain. Yea, our brethren that were in the places of Toby are put to death, their wives and their children also they have carried away captive, and borne away their stuff. They had destroyed there about 8,000 men, right? So Timotheus had attacked our brothers, right? So they had sent word out to Judas to come and rescue them, right? Come and help them, because So while these letters were yet reading, behold, there came another messenger from Galilee with their clothes rent, who reported on this wise, and said, they of Ptolemy's and of Tyrus and Sidon and all the Galilee of the Gentiles are assembled together against us to come to consume us. Now when Judas and the people heard these words, there assembled a great congregation together to consult what they should do for their brethren that were in trouble and that assaulted them. Right. So they came together. The council like, all right, what we gonna do? How we gonna fight against these people that's attacking our people in these cities, right? And just like good wise men do, because Jesus told us, no man go to war without counting the cost. So he, pulled his people together, his advisors, and say, hey, what should we do about all this, right? He didn't do what number 47 is doing and just start blowing up stuff in Venezuela, right? He say, hey, what we gonna do? Let's think this over, right? Then where are we at? Then said Judas unto Simon his brother, choose thee out of men to go and deliver thy brethren that are in Galilee, for I, Jonathan, my brother, for I and Jonathan, my brother, will go into the country of Galilee. So he left. So he left Joseph, the son of Zacharias, and Elazarus, the captains of the people, with a remnant of a host of Judea to keep it, unto whom he gave commandment, saying, take ye a charge of this people, and see that ye make not war against the heathen until time that we come again. Now unto Simon were given thee 1,000 men to go into Galilee, and unto Judas 8,000 men for the country of Gilead. So he told his brother, hey, hold it down in Galilee, right? Protect the people, right? And I'm gonna go holler at these people that's on the countryside, trying to make some ruckus, making static, right? And so we sent split the military up to help the people that needed aid, right? Then sent Simon into Galilee, where he fought many battles with the heathen, so that the heathen were discomforted by him. And he pursued them into the gates of Ptolemais, and there were slain of the heathen about 3,000 men, whose spoils he took. So we beat them up. Then ransacked their camps and took what they left behind, right? And then it says, and those that were in Galilee and Abatis with their wives and children and all that had he took away with him, and brought them into Judea with great joy. Judas Maccabees also and his brother Jonathan went over Jordan and traveled 3 days journey in the wilderness, where they met with Nethabites, with the Nethabites, who came into them with a peaceable manner, and told them everything that had happened to their brethren in the land of Gilead. Now, and now that many of them were shut up in Basra and Bozrah and Elamah and Caspor, Make and Caminan, all these cities are strong and great, and that they were shut up in the rest of the cities and the countries of Gilead, and against tomorrow they had appointed to bring their hosts against the force, and to take them and to destroy them, to destroy all of them in one day. So you're like, look, my people, they trapped in these cities. They they surrounded by this army, right? So you're telling this the Nethabites, what's going on, right? And he says, hereupon Judas and his host turned suddenly by the way of the wilderness unto Basra, and when he had won the city, he slew all the males with the edge of the sword, and took their spoils, and burnt the city. And burnt the city with fire. From hence he removed by night, and went till he came into the forest. And bedtimes in the morning they look up, and behold, there was innumerable people bearing ladders and other engines of war to take the fortress, for they assaulted them. When Judas therefore saw that the battle was begun, and that the cry of the city went up to heaven with trumpets and great sound, he said unto his host, fight this day for your brethren. So Judah's like, you see the war breaking out, and like, hey, look, we fight for your brethren, right? And so he went forth behind them, and three companies who sounded their trumpets and carried and who sounded their trumpets and cried with prayers. Then the host of Timotheus, knowing that Maccabees fled from him, therefore he smote them with great slaughter, so that there were killed of them that day 8,000 men. Then Judas turned aside to Mizpah, and after he had assaulted it, he took it and slew all the males therein, and received the spoils thereof, and burnt it with fire. From hence went he and took Caspian, and Magad, and Basra, and the other cities of the country of Gilead. So he just after these people attacked our people, so he just went on a basically like a rampage, going city to city, taking back these cities that the Greeks and stuff had strongholds in, right? Then hold on one second. So yeah, right. So just going city to city, right? Where we at? After these things gathered Timotheus another host, and encamped against Repton upon the brook. So Judas sent men to espy the host, who brought him word, saying, all the heathens that be around about us are assembled unto them, even a very great host. So Timotheus came with a big old army to try to surround us, right? Not knowing that our brother Judas Maccabees is fighting with the power of the Lord, right? Then says, and he had also hired the Arabians to help him, and they have pitched their tents beyond the brook, ready to come and fight against thee. So then he's like, yeah, he also got the Arabians with him too. They done pinched their tents. Like they ready to come against us, right? Like they on that with us, right? So upon this, Judas went to meet them. So then Judas like, what? The Arabians? The Arabians want smoke? Alright. So then it says, upon this, Judas went to meet them. Then Timotheus said unto the captains of his host, when Judas and his host came near the brook, if he pass first unto us, we shall not be able to withstand him, for he will mighty prevail against us. But if he be afraid and camp beyond the river, we shall go unto him and prevail against him. So Timothy is telling his guys, like, look, hey, look, Judas is coming, but just see what he on though. Like, if they come charging at us, if they get by that brook, we know that they on that. You know what I'm saying? But if they stop and just freeze up a little bit and just hold camp, then then we go get them, because that was symbolized in battle, especially in those days too, and even now, like, because it's all about numbers, right? And then you don't want to be outnumbered, right? But of course, we talking like cardinal, right? Because of course, dealing with the Most High Army, it doesn't matter how many people we got, but this on a cardinal level, on a worldly level, when you go into battle and you see the army, or just normally when you see somebody that you about to fight and you looking at them, you sizing them up, you be like, all right, I know I can take this person. So you immediately attack them, because you ain't fearing that they might do anything to you, because you feel like, okay, I can take this person. But if you're about to get into a fight and then you sizing this person up, and you look at them like, damn, I don't know, I might have to rethink this. Then you might be a little hesitant. So being a general that Timotheus is, he's understanding that point. Like, okay, if they come charging at us, then that means they perhaps got more soldiers than us. Then they already got the power of God. So just leave these people alone, right? So now wait a sec. Says, but if he be afraid and camp beyond the rivers, we shall go over unto him and prevail against him. Now when Judas came near the brook, he caused the scribes of the people to remain by the brook, unto whom he gave commandment, saying, suffer no man to remain in the camp, but let all come to battle. So he went over to them, and all the people after him. And then the heathen, being discomfited before him, cast away their weapons and fled into the temple that was in Capernaum. So Judas was on that, So just like how Timotheus thought, Judas came charging. He said, look, he like, if you scared, he told his soldiers, basically, look, if you're scared, go home. All right? You know what I'm saying? Everybody that's ready to die, come on with me. And then they charged the camp. And then, like dude said, like, man, if they come towards us, we got to get up out of here. So they ran, right? And then it says, and it says, and now when Judas came near the brook, he caused the scribes and the people to remain by the brook, until whom he gave a commandment, saying, suffer no man to remain in the camp. Meaning, like, all y'all come out, you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody, we bringing all the soldiers. And it says, but let all come to battle. So he went first over unto them, and all the people after him. And then the heathen, being discomfited before him, cast away their weapons and fled into the temple. So, they were so scared seeing Judas and the soldiers that in charge after him. They didn't even have time to gather their weapons. They just threw them down, just ran, right? Then it says, but they took the city and burnt the temple with all that therein. Thus was Capernaum subdued, neither could they stand any longer before Judas. So, Judas took the city, right? Destroyed the army and took the city. Then it says, then Judas gathered together all the Israelites that were in the country of Gilead, from the least unto the greatest, even after their wives and their children and their stuff, and very great hosts, even and very great hosts, to the end that they might into the land of hold on, let me read it right. It says, very great hosts, till even they might come into the land of Judea. Now when they came into Ephraim, this was a great city, in this way, as they should go very well fortified. They could not turn from it, neither on the right hand or the left, but must need pass through the midst of it. So they came to the city called Ephraim. So they have to go through it, right? They have to get through it, so they can do their thing, right? And it says and then they of the city shut them out and stop up the gates with stones. So they wouldn't let us pass, right? We just trying to chill. We wasn't on that with them, right? We were just trying to just pass through the city, right? Then it says how whereupon Judas sent unto them a peaceable manner, saying, let us pass through your land. Let us pass through your land, and go into our own country. and none shall do you any hurt. We will pass only on foot. Howbeit, so he like, look, we don't want no smoke with you, man. We just trying to get to the crib, like that song go. I'm just trying to make it home. I'm just trying to make it home, right? I'm just trying to make it home, right? They just trying to get back to the land because they've been out fighting, So now they're trying to make it back to Judea, right? So then they like, nah, we ain't letting y'all people come through here. We know what y'all do when y'all, right? So he's like, no, we ain't on that. We're gonna just keep on walking, just straight to the land, right? So what happened with that? So then it says, we will only pass through on foot. Howbeit they were not open unto him. So they still didn't like, we ain't letting y'all through, man. Forget all that, right? You know what I'm saying? Then wherefore Judas commanded a proclamation to be made throughout the host that every man should pitch his tent in a place where he was. He like, all right, you don't want to let us through. All right, then we gonna be here for a while there, right? You know what I'm saying? They like, hey, stall him out, Debo. And I'm saying, no, we gonna be here for a while, right? It says, every man should pitch his tent where he was. So the soldiers pitched and assaulted the city all day and all night until the length of the city was delivered into his hands. So they didn't want to let us pass. So Judas was like, okay, you don't want to let us pass, then we're going to go through it. Since we can't go over it, we're going to go through it. So we took the city. You know what I'm saying? We didn't want the city, but we took the city. But dude was on some stuff like, no, you can't get through it, So Judas like, all right, this what we on. Like, I can do that to you. So then we took the city, right? And then it says, so when who then slew all the males with the edge of the sword and razed the city and took spoils thereof and passed through the city over them that were slain. So after we took the city, we robbed it, looted, all that stuff. Then Allen Iverson stepped over the ones that defiled us, right? Did the little Allen Iverson stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you're familiar with the clip, or you know what I'm saying, you're old enough to remember the Scottie Pippen slam dunk on Patrick Ewing, stare down, step over it, right? That's what we did, right? What it say? It says, who then slew all the males with the edge of the sword and razed the city and took the spoils thereof and passed through the city over them that were slain. So we said, all right, we're gonna Scottie Pippen, Patrick Ewing, slam down, stare down, step over it. Allen Iverson, Tyrone Lue, right? So we took the city because they wouldn't let us pass through. They got on that with us. Then it says then it says, after this they went over Jordan to the great plain before Bashan. Judas gathered together those that came behind and exhorted the people all the way until they came into the land of Judea. So went up Mount Zion with joy and gladness, where they offered burnt offerings, because not one of them were slain until they had returned in peace. So, our whole army made it back in one piece, right? So the Most High God had favor on them. And then seeing that they, they just made it home. You know what I'm saying? At first they were just trying to make it home. They just trying to make it home, but now they made it home, right? So then they sacrificed and thanked the Lord for allowing them having a safe voyage, right? Then and it says, and now what time as Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Gilead, and Simon his brother of Gilead before Ptolemy, Joseph the son of Zacharias, and Elazarus the captain of the garrison heard of the valiant acts, heard of the valiant, heard of the valiant acts and warlike deeds which they had done. Therefore they said, let us also. So now this is what the problem is right here. We about to see. So you know how it is. You know, there's always somebody that they see you doing your thing, right? You getting the glory, people, praising you, and you doing your, you getting your shine on. And there's always that one person that want to get that shine too. They see that light coming down and shining on you. They're like, man, let me get in that light. Let me jump in that light, right? So that's what these brothers was doing. They see Judas being a great general of his time, being respected of other generals throughout the other nations, right? So they like, well, shoot, if Judah's over here whooping these dudes, I mean, shit, I mean, we can do it too. Like, I mean, surely the Most High God is with us also, right? And that's why, pride sometimes, right? That's why they say pride comes before destruction, right? People become real prideful. So they wanted that glory that Judas was getting, that praise, So they said, let's just go do this, right? There's always that one guy, see you doing something, then here they come try to take the credit or try to be like, oh yeah, me too, right? Like Pusha T say, Mr. Me Too, right? You got a lot of Mr. Me Too's around here, right? And that's what these brothers was doing. They turned into a bunch of Mr. Me Too, right? So what happened? Boom. Then so it says, therefore they said, let us go. Let us get. It said, let us get us a name. It said, let us get us a name, right? Like, let's be famous too, right? I want to be famous. I just want to be famous, right? I just want to be famous. I just want to be successful. That's what they saying. Just go get a name for us, right? So it says, wherefore they said, let us also get us a name and go fight against the heathen that are around about us. So they like, well, all right, let's go get, let's go do the same thing. And that happens a lot. People think they see you doing something and they think it's, like, what, it must be easy. They doing it. You know what I'm saying? So let me go do it, right? And then they end up being disastrous, right? But it happens like that. And it says, so when they had give charge unto the garrison, they was with them. They went towards Jama, Jamnia. That's right. Then it says when Gagaias then came Gagaias and his men out of the city to fight against him. So then he went to go fight against Gagaias, right? So they like, all right, let's go get Gagaias, right? So, and to be truthful, I think in the Greek or in the Latin, his name is pronounced Gorgias, but I refuse to call another man Gorgias. So his name is Gagaias. God dang it, your name Gagaias. So so he went to go fight against Gagaias. So it says, then came Gagaias and his men out of the city to fight against him. And so it was that Joseph and Eleazar were put to fight and pursued into the borders of Judea, and were slain them that day the people of Israel about 2,000 men. So they got 2,000 people killed with their foolishness because they want to go try to be the next man up. They want to try to act like they can be the big man too, because they wanted the fame like Judas. They wanted the people to look at them like how they look at Judas. So they went to go try to fight Gorgeous George, right? Gagaias, right? I'm not calling this man gorgeous. But yeah, Gagaias. They went to go fight him. Then Gagaias put a belt to ass on him and got 2,000 of our people killed. Got our city ransacked and all that stuff, right? All because of pride, right? All because he thought, well, shoot, It gotta be easy. Judas can do it, I can do it, right? Pride. And it says, that's their thus was there a great overthrow among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient unto Judas and his brethren, but throughout but though but hold on, let me read it right. It says, thus was there a great overthrow among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient to Judas and his brethren, but through to do some but thought to do some valiant act. So they like, look, we want our own Purple Heart of War. Oftentimes, in war, if you're familiar with the war stuff, you know, Purple Hearts and medals and stuff is earned. People usually don't go set out and say, you know what, I'm gonna go get me a Purple Heart. I'm about to go almost unalive myself and just go do something very heroic, right? People don't do that, right? But these people thought they can go take the glory, right? These people thought that didn't have to wait on Judas, and take commands from Judas, right? And that's the problem with our people, right? We have this inherited attitude of who this nigga think he talking to, right? We have that inherited attitude like, can't nobody tell me what to do, right? I'm gonna do my own thing, right? And you gotta understand how this works. The Most High, works through individuals, right? And if you see the Most High working through a certain individual, then you should follow that person, right? Because that's who the Most High God is working with, right? And that's who you follow, right? Just like going back to Moses, right? Moses had the same problem. The people was talking junk with Moses, right? His Aaron and Miriam and stuff, with mostly Miriam, and you had the other prophets and all that stuff, was getting down on Moses, like, they like, sure, we prophets too, right? We get prophecies from the Most High too. Like, Moses, you ain't that dude like that. I mean, okay, he took us out of Egypt, that's cool, but I mean, shoot, the Most High God tell us stuff too. So even Moses had to deal with people trying to be number one. But then what did God do? God had to show those prophets and who's number one. So guys were like, all right, okay, this is what we're gonna do here. Let's see who the Most High God is with, right? So all you prophets, go get your incense and all that stuff, and come on down to the temple. Everybody come on down, right? And just go inside. Come on in the room. Let's go up in the room, right? Last man standing is who the Lord is working with, right? That's the simple rule, right? We're going to figure this out. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Last man standing is who the Most High God is working with. And then what happened? Moses was the only one standing. All those prophets that came against Moses and said, yeah, God is talking to me too. I can do this stuff too. The Most High God unalived them, right? In a not so cool way, right? Burnt them up with their incense that they was holding, right? Then after he did that, he turned our dear sister Miriam into a albino for a hot second, right? And that wasn't cool. Then they had to pray and fast to get that, to get her, all that stuff right. You know the story if you're familiar. So Moses had to deal with this. So what happened? Thus was there a great overthrow among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient to Judas and his brethren, but thought to do some valiant act. So they like, look, we want to be our own. We want to be brave. We want people to look at us as we them niggas. We him, right? So, and they got 2,000 people killed and got our city taken, right? Then it says, in those days by the hand of deliverance was given unto Israel. Howbeit the man of Judas and his brethren were greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel. So now again, so they were greatly renowned, meaning they were respectable men. People see Judas and his brothers and they say, oh yeah, those the Maccabees. You're like, hey, what's going on, right? Everybody wanted to be around them, You know, there was, who people aspired to be. They was the heroes, right? Then you had this little knucklehead that want to try to inspire to get that same admonishment of Judas and his brothers. He decided to try to make war with these people on his own, right? And got about 2,000 people unalive that day. Howbeit, the men, Judas and his brethren, were greatly renowned, meaning they was highly respected, right? Very important men. Greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel and all of the heathen. So not only did our own people respect these men, they were respected by their enemies, right? And by the other nations, right? That's what these brothers wanted when they thought on their own to go try to make war with what's dude name Timotheus, right? That's what they thought, right? So it says greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel and of the all the heathen, whereso their name was heard of. So they just had a good reputation. You hear that name, the Maccabean brothers, right? He like, oh shoot, you know what I'm saying? That's yeah, that was all right. Wayne, all right, that's what you. All you gotta do is say, look, hey, I'm with Judas and the Maccabees, And like, all right, come on in, then. I don't want no smoke. That's all you have to say the first time, right? They have respect, right, among the nations and amongst their own people, right? Then it says, it must so as the people assemble unto them with joy acclamations. Afterwards, when Judas forth and his brethren and fought against the children of Esau in the land towards the south, where he smote Hebron and the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortress of it, and burnt the towers thereof round about. From hence he went to, from hence he removed to go into the land of the Philistines, and passed through Samaria. And after the time, the priest desirous slew their valor, and at that time the certain priests desirous to sue their valor were slain in battle, for they went out to fight unadvisedly. So then you have some other people, some priests, right, try to do the same thing. They're like, well, we want to, show we brave too. Like, I know we in this temple and we be praying to God and sacrificing and, doing all this holy stuff, and everybody just think we some chumps. But we carry swords, we got swords on us, right? We can fight, you know what I'm saying? Let us go out there and show what we can do. But again, that's what happens when pride overtakes, you know what I'm saying? Because the Most High put Judas in charge, and the people are supposed to follow after Judas, right? And our people have a hard time following after somebody that looks just like them, right? So it says, from hence he removed into the land of the Philistines and passed through Samaria. At that time, certain priests, desirous to show their valor, were slain in battle. So they went up and they got themselves unalive. For that they went out to fight unadvisedly. So they went to go fight and nobody told them to go fight. Like, you're the priest, you're supposed to be in the temple protecting the temple, right? And according to the law, I mean, not that the priest didn't fight, but they supposed to fight when somebody gets close to the temple. If you're not supposed to be in that temple, then that's when they, do their thing. That's when they, they turn into, the little ninjas and do, get you up out of there, right? They protect the temple, but they like, look, just go out into this battlefield, and they got unalive. And it says, for they went out to fight unadvisedly. So Judas turned to Athos in the land of the Philistines. And when he had pulled down their altars and burnt their carved images with fire and spoiled the cities, he returned to the land of Judea. So we destroyed their altars and, their little Greek gods and stuff that they call themselves worshiping, because we wasn't getting down with that, right? So he destroyed all that, right? Just like how the law tells us to do, to cast down these vain imaginations and these altars and these, idolatrous stuff, right? So he did that. So yeah, hold on one second. Let's go to we can go to Second Maccabees, but hold on one second. Yes, lucky, yeah. So yeah, second Maccabees, chapter 4, right? So we're gonna jump into the book of Second Maccabees, because again, we don't got time to read everything in the whole Maccabees. So this way we can kind of bounce back and forth, right, and read as much as we can during this great holiday, right? So let's go to chapter 4, right? And it says, this Simon now, of whom we spake of before, having been a betrayer of the money, a not a bewarer of the money, and of his country, slander Ananias, and as hold on. It says, slander Ananias as if he had terrified Helio Darius, and been the worker of these evils. Thus had he bold to call him a traitor, that had deserved well of the city, and tender his own nation, and was so zealous of the law. So he talking junk about Ananias, who was a good high priest, that was faithful, but he trying to talk about him like he's a traitor and stuff, right? Then it says, but when their hatred went so far that by one of Simon's faction murderers were committed. So he was just talking so much junk, and he got people that's loyal to him. And sometimes how this stuff be, you be talking junk, then then one of your peoples, they feeling you, they want to show that they behind you so much, they might go unalive one of your enemies, right? So that's what happened here. Then it says, but when their hatred went so far that by one of Simon's faction murderers were committed. So they started unaliving each other, right? And Ananias, seeing the danger of his contention, that Apollonius, as being a governor of Sisera in Phoenicia, did rage and increase Simon's malice. He went to the king, not to be an accuser of his countrymen, but seeking a good both public and private. So he wanted to try to see if he can squash the beef, because he like, look, this ain't a good look, for the people to see us going at it like this, So let's go to the just try to squash this amongst ourselves, right? So then for he saw that it was impossible that the state would that the state should continue quiet and Simon leave his folly, unless the king did look thereon to it. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antiochus called Epictetus took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Anthemius, labored underhand to be high priest. So Jason, sneaky little traitor self, Uncle Tom self, he was trying to undermine his brother for he can be high priest, right? And it says boom boom boom, promising unto the king by intercession 360 talents of silver, and another revenue 80 talents. Besides this, he promised to assign 150 more, if he might be licensed to set him up a place for exercise and training up the youth in the fashion of the heathen, and to write them of Jerusalem by the name of Antiochus. So he look, he wanted to basically, what happened? Like, Jason was a traitor. What happened to Jason, right? Jason was a mighty warrior, priest. Now this guy becomes a traitor, right? He's trying to undermine his brother Ananias, right? He's basically want to assimilate the Israelites into the Greeks, right? He want to, build, gymnasiums and stadiums and, and schools technically that basically propagate and teach, Greek mythology, the Greek philosophy and the Greek way of life. It's no different like how in modern day America they went to Hawaii and set up schools and forced the Hawaiian people to speak English, or they go to Mexico and do the same thing. They go build schools in Africa and make it look like it's a noble act, but but you gotta ask yourself, what are they teaching in these type of schools? They teaching their philosophies, right? That's why a lot of these people become Americanized, and you look at some of these foreigners, and they speak like so clear English, or the English is be very good and very fluent. That's because a lot of these schools that they go to, indoctrinate them and force them to speak a certain type of way, right? That's why certain foreigners, you might hear them talk, it sounds like they say every last syllable, right? Because they've been forced to make sure they pronounce that stuff like you better not have no type of, you better not talk that jungle talk. You better say it like a white man, right? So so he was trying to get his people assimilated, and built these things up and put his people into the ways of the Greeks, right? And trying to fatten his pockets while he do it. Which when the king had granted and had gotten into his hand to rule, he forthwith brought his own nation to the Greekish fashion. So turn his people into following the Greeks. It said the royal privilege granted special favor to the Jews by the means of John, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid, he took away and putting down the governments which was according to the law. He brought up new customs against the law, for he built gladly the place of exercise under the towers itself, and brought the chief young man under subjection. So this guy let's read it again. It says, the royal privilege granted a favor to the Jews by the means of Jonathan, the father of Eupolemus, who went ambassador to Rome for amity and aid. So they sent their people to Rome to see the Caesar, to try to get aid and funding, so they can build things in the city to quote unquote gentrify it, right, to make it more Greek and Roman friendly, right? Um, like how a lot of our people do, they, end up accepting the bag and taking a check at the detriment of their own people, right? And and sell the people out, and that's what he was doing. Um, it says, "For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself." So, and the place of exercise, the little gymnasiums, their whole sports customs and stuff that they take on. Now, of course, in this day and age, our people, we do sports and we're very great at it, right? But we wasn't into that stuff, until that became, forced on us, right? That was their thing that they did. Like, we were philosophers. That's why I said we were philosophers, warriors, priests, and kings, right? That's what we did. We, on our free time, we did puzzles, riddles, poetry, and martial arts. That's what we did for our recreation, right? But then the Greeks came in and added this whole um, feminine homosexual vibe type of lifestyle, because they was wrestling naked. If you're familiar with the Roman Greco style of wrestling, it used to be naked, right? They used to exercise naked. That's why it's so cool now that people go to the weight rooms and they be half naked. That's Greek stuff. That's what the Greeks used to do. They used to exercise naked. Men take their shirts off and stuff, be all testosterone flowing in the air, and a whole bunch of naked men just working out. That's what they was into, right? Then they even put that on our people. Now we gladly nowadays we gladly go to these workout places. We put cameras in front of us and we wear our clothes so tight that we might as well be naked, and then we film ourselves for everybody to see, right? So we took that custom and we our people do whatever we get a hold to. We always do it to the death, right? So that's what we did. And it says, "For he built gladly a place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought chief young men under his subjection." And took the little young man, and brought him under his subjection, right? And then, if you familiar with the Greek customs, I mean, we can only just, just speculate what that means. Knowing how the Greeks used to get down, right? We can only just speculate the type of stuff that means, right? And then it says, "And made them wear a hat." It says, "And a chief young man under his subjection, and made them wear a hat." He brought the chief young man under his subjection and made them wear a hat. So hats, right? I know everybody gonna be like, "Oh, what's wrong with a hat? Can't wear a hat now?" Sure, so the white man told us we can't wear a hat now, right? So now these hats that they're talking about, when you look it up, they're basically, if I can liken it to something that we can, know off the bat, because LL Cool J Kango hat. Remember the bell hat with the little Kango? That's what they used to wear to, to show that young man is subjugation, to whatever this stuff is talking about, right? And so, like, when you look it up, the hat is like a bucket hat, like the Kango hat that come down, right? That's what they, used to make us wear, right? And now, of course, it's a style. If you, I know when I was a kid, used to see the grown people wear their little Kangos and stuff. That was cool. The little bucket hat when LL Cool J came out with the "Mama Said Knock You Out," right? The bucket hat, the same thing, except for it didn't have a Kango on it. It had some Greek stuff going on, right? And it says, he built gladly place of exercise under the tower itself, and brought the chief young men under his subjection, and made them wear a hat. Now such was the height of the Greek fashion, and increase of the heathenistic manners. So, their way of life began to, further propagate amongst our people, to the point that we just doing, just being just like those people, right? And that's why, again, going to, once you get into the New Testament, when they start speaking about the Gentiles that the disciples are talking to, or and the epistles are being written to, these are our people that been living under the fashion of the Greeks, from from this time on, right? That's why it's a separation when you get to the New Testament, where they kind of treat the people of Samaria different than the people that live in Judea. So, because the thought process there was like, if you didn't stay in Judea, then they didn't consider you, a Jew, or or an Israelite. If you was living outside of Judea, or in any one of those Roman or Greek provinces, they consider you a Gentile, right? Because we're reading the history. Why? Because there's a lot of fighting, a lot of war, a lot of stuff, laws and stuff being implemented that was affecting the people even to the time of Jesus Christ, right? It's no different now. Like when they make laws a long time ago, and they still kind of somewhat have an effect on the people to this day, right? It's no different. So if you can understand that, you can understand this, right? Because a lot of laws that, it's laws that they passed this year and last year that's going to affect generations to come, right? So by the time we get to the New Testament, when Jesus is talking about go to the lost sheep of Israel, those people were not calling themselves Israelites. They were not identifying themselves as Israelites. Like predominantly here, our people here in America, we don't identify ourselves as, Israelites. We call ourselves African American, black, whatever stuff you may be, Hispanic, whatever. We call ourselves these different things, right? But so it's the same thing, if you can understand, right? So it says, now such was the height of the Greeks' fashion, and increase of the heathenistic manners, through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wench, and no high priest. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't a real priest. He was a dang old traitor, right? Uncle Tom, someone that sold out his people to influence our people to go into sin and cause, the decay and the what's the word I'm looking for? The the decay and just the profaneness of our people, right? To like how we are, to just the wretchedness, just cause our people to just be ratchet, right? And it was his fault for opening up the door, because he was a leader. And that's what happened to this day. Our leaders allow certain things to happen, and they don't protect us, because they get the check. They get the check from the government. They get the hush money, right? So the same thing is going on here, right? That the priests had no courage to serve anymore at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifice, hastening to partake of the unlawfulness. Wait, it said hasten to take unlawful allowance in a place of exercise after the game of Odysseus called them forth. So now it got to a point, because so is that if the head is sick, the whole body is sick, right? I think Malcolm X taught us that, right? If the head is sick, the whole body is sick. So you got the head priest, you got the priest Jason. First, Jason unsnaked his brother out of the thing, because he's not snaked his brother. So now you have this guy like this propagating this stuff, right? It's just like no different than the church today. You go to church, they got all type of this crazy stuff in there, right? And it's like unrecognizable from from a place of worship or theater, right? You don't know if you're going to see a show or you're actually going to hear the word of God when you go to those places. And I mean, spoiler alert, you're not going to ever hear the words of God in those places, right? So, but so it's like, it's just like that. They're there to further, profane and cause decay amongst the people because you don't learn anything there. You just go to those places to feel good and get puffed up. Then after a few hours later, that adrenaline, that dopamine that was shooting through your system because you was listening to